Scorpio, Scorpio, Scorpio. Each year, when we get to this time, the hands of the annual clock, the movement of the sun, comes round to that sign of Scorpio. There's a certain trepidation that this particular energy, it is an energy after all, brings up for us. And I use the term trepidation judiciously here. We've just come out of, actually, we're just about to come out of, because this is the last full day of Libra, an investigation process into what is it that comes up in that realm where we're invited to interact with one another. This is the realm of Libra. And Scorpio comes along, which is tomorrow, by the way, the 22nd. And what does it do? Does it throw a monkey wrench into that investigation process? One could see that as a potential, but I'm more inclined to think that it asks us, have you gone far enough with that investigation process of what it means to actually engage with one another? There is a next step, several actually. Scorpio, the realm of life, death, and rebirth. And as one of the water signs, healing, regeneration, and recovery. Scorpio, the shaman, the detective, the sorcerer. What energy do you want to invite to the table? They're all available. And they might be vying for our attention in quite dynamic fashion. Spelling out. I'm choosing that word quite specifically because a spell, that capacity that we have to, formulate a thought, a word, an energy, if you will, that is a spell. And I in this case, but we are sharing in an adventure here where, the potential for casting a spell over this particular time of year that is an invitation to us to, what should we say, stand at the edge of the abyss. On one side, the potential for annihilation. On the other side, the potential for salvation. I'm going to invite you to recognize that this is not an either or, this is an and. Because oftentimes annihilation is the requirement to rid oneself of factors that have, been entrenched in our life dance for whatever reasons, for perhaps a bit longer than would be required for our soul development to grow. And we need to cast them into that abyss so that they might be reformulated back into the energy of life, so that they can be born new again. And from that, is there a salvation? Because even in using that term salvation, that what is conjured up are considerations of, stepping beyond a place that may not have felt safe. The realm of Scorpio is and has that energy present where, honesty is being, run through a sieve, shall we say, to ferret out what is real and what isn't. And hopefully we reach a point where we can be honest with ourselves and each other in this investigative process of the potential for a rebirthing to transpire where we are no longer who we used to be. This is the invitation that Scorpio brings every year. Are you ready? Well, normally I might say happy birthday to all those born under a particular sign that we're going into. For Scorpio, I would say welcome to this next solar return. And may the adventures that are ahead really tap your soul awareness and awaken something within you that needs to be brought out. Keeping it secret, always one of the options with Scorpio, may not effectively allow your soul to grow in the fashion that it intended to grow when it incarnated for this particular earth dance that you are on currently. As we jump into the astrology for this week, right off the bat, we can see that this is Monday, the very last day of Libra. On this day, the sun is going to shift because it's moving at a rate of 59 minutes and 41 seconds, almost 1 minute exactly. Oh, also, by the way, the moon went out of bounds yesterday. Always like moon out of bounds, born with it. And it inspires the creativity within me to, think, speak out of the box, if you will. Anyway, on this day, as the sun shifts to 29 degrees of Libra, the very last degree, it forms a square to Pluto, one of the two ruling planets of, you guessed it, Scorpio. Mars being the traditional ruler of Scorpio. And this is a unique time frame that we're going into as we approach the elections here in the United States. Mars is going to be moving into an exact opposition to this same Pluto. These planets and oppositions and squares don't easily portray the kind of easygoing, relaxed kind of scenarios where things flow from one thing into the next. Because oppositions and squares, the elements, they aren't on the same page. We're talking Libra air, Capricorn earth, Mars in water, Capricorn earth. That opposition across that axis, that square from the process of what does it mean to hang with one another in Libra, and Capricorn under the Scorpio influence is saying, you know, have you been paying attention to what it is that I have been exposing you to? Can you sense, perhaps a wee bit of edginess in, in how the depth of what we have been and are being exposed to might, grate on the edge of that solar vitality in the realm of how we're getting along with each other. It's quite evident on some fronts in the political realm right now. That is afoot. I can't recommend paying an overt amount of attention to it because it feeds upon itself in a sense and continues to create that, oh yeah, the sound of fingernails on a blackboard. Not comfortable. And why bother with it? There's other magic that's afoot, Let's just go to Tuesday. Here we are in the very last minutes of Libra. On this day, the sun will slip across the line into the realm of Scorpio. And by the way, look who's in Scorpio. Mercury. In the mythological history, Mercury was one of the only God divine characters that could actually enter into Hades. And I'm using Hades because often Hades comes up when we're considering Scorpio. After all, Pluto is the ruler of Hades, and Pluto is the ruler of Scorpio. So this square between the sun and Pluto that's going on here as we, trip across that line into the realm of Scorpio, Mercury has been laying the tracks for us if we but willingly listen, pay attention to, what is it that the mercurial messenger may have, unearthed for us with the assistance from Pluto as far as the potential for deep and penetrating insight, which is essential Scorpio, to what? Awaken us to opportunities that if we, willingly jettison those things that need to be annihilated into that abyss so that a version of newness might have the opportunity to find space within us to be present in a new rebirth version of ourselves. This is the essential energy that this initial process of the scorpionic awakening I see as the invitation for this particular scorpionic dance month that we're going to go through. To, just to add a little extra, what should we call it, sensitivity into this particular dance cycle that we're beginning. Mercury right here at 13 degrees of Scorpio is in an exact trine to Saturn over here at 13 degrees of Pisces. There's two of our water signs. And remember that water element? The healing, regeneration, and recovery process that is in what fashion? There's a lesson. Saturn is involved. And the lesson is no, not of a minor, insignificant nature. It is in Pisces. And as such, the invitation, if you will, is not to just skittle along on the surface of what is transpiring, but to dive into the depth of what it is that we are being, taught, perhaps even challenged with, because it's Saturn after all, and life lessons, which Saturn very much always represents, are not something that are you just insignificant energy passing by in a casual moment. Oh, no, not. This is a moment when, we're invited, mercurial invitation, be cautious here because Mercury can be a trickster as to, am I being toyed with? Or is there really something quite dynamic that is trying to message me from that trine to Saturn in Pisces from a very deep and profound level of soul awareness that is trying to awaken within me a way to formulate, if you will, a meaningful Scorpio message that is not necessarily going to be easily accepted and shared with others, but there's a vitality in it that, if I can be really honest, at a soul level, is going to open up a conversational experience that probably hasn't transpired before. Have I been too scared to bring it up? Am I feeling intimidated with what it is that these potentially new thoughts are awakening within me, within us? Notice the extra moments of thought that I gave you there to contemplate that. These are very dynamic times that we're in, and we're being asked to shift, if you will, the direction that current humanity is potentially able to take from this point going forward, that has only been alluded to in the past. Let's go to Wednesday. This is a Mars day, by the way, Tuesday. Wednesday is what? Oh yeah, the Mercury day. And Mercury, whipping along as Mercury does. It's moving pretty quick these days. On this day, this out of bounds moon up here at 22 degrees of Cancer is going to be moving all the way as it moves 12 to 13 degrees a day into the earliest degrees of Leo, and that will be the waning square between the sun and the moon. Crisis in consciousness is what Dane Rudger referred to it as, and it's kind of that last square energy that always comes up. It says, how or is the path that I am on appropriate? Can you see a crisis in consciousness there? My thoughts are saying, a lot has been stirred up in any particular lunar cycle. And this particular one, this last one, happens at 1 degree of Leo. You can almost feel a percolation of energy for this out of bounds last quarter moon that's saying, take a chance. And the arena that has just opened up for us in Scorpio is saying, possibly, if you really are willing and trust your soul, to take a chance on the rebirthing process. Find a new place within yourself that has been begging for your attention, but for many reasons, living here in the earth plane, you're not generally going to find a common table conversation pointing this out to you, that there are options of what it is that we came to do here while on planet Earth that well exceed the day-to-day trudging of trying to survive. There's way more potential for what it is that we came to do if we but, ask the appropriate questions in any moment. And the moments right now, we're spinning the process of how is it from a Libra perspective that we engage with one another, and dipping that into Scorpio, it says that this is not something to do on a light and insignificant level. This is an invitation to, explore the depth of what your soul is trying to awaken you to. One more very dynamic energy that is coming along this week is Venus. Venus always comes along as an answer to the Martian driving kind of energy. You have Aries, Mars driven energy to do something, and Venus comes along in Taurus afterward and says, chill, dude. It's time to, have some of the sweet essences that nature's providing for us. And also, the natural rulerships. Every Mars-ruled sign has Venus as the ruler opposing it. Venus is there as an answer to that Martian energy. And Martian energy is up right now because we're going into Scorpio. Now, the reason that I brought up Venus is because that if we switch, life just keeps on moving. I could look at a chart and say, I can interpret this chart just as it is. So each chart that I look at, oh God, what new dances are afoot. If I go to the 26th, now we see that Venus here is at 10 degrees of Sagittarius. It's reaching into that second decade of Sagittarius. If I also look over here at our decanates, that plus and minus, you notice the moon has gone back into bounds. But look, we have a new participant that has just stepped out of bounds. It's Venus. And Venus steps out of bounds, and it's going to be out of bounds until December 2nd. Think of the Venusian process, What are your values? There's a good Venusian. What are things worth? And how is it that I interact with others in this exploration of the dance of, who am I? Who are you? Who are we? And the out of bounds kind of energy, which is going to be with us for, a while, a month plus. We have, out of bounds words like wild, unrestrained, extreme, magnified, uncontrollable, vulnerable, independent, awkward, extraordinary, privileged, creative. I want you to sit with that. We're all going to get to sit with it from the 26th of this month until the 2nd of December as Venus moves from Sagittarius on into Capricorn, inviting us from the Sagittarian perspective to see the potential for where is it that we want to go. It's Venus, after all. It's about that interactive quality that we share with one another. And from the Sagittarian insight into what more is there that is, asking us to participate with it on this adventure of expanding our awareness beyond the capacities of what others might have tried to contain us within. This is an adventure, And the first part of this adventure, which begins this week, is with a Scorpio perspective. Time to turn over some stones that may be in our path to investigate what might be hiding underneath as opportunity to awaken us to a deeper and more profound version of what it is that we came to discover in our rebirthing process. Are you ready? There are always many astrological conversations going on between the planets that we tune into. It would be a long conversation to go into all of those. And there are other astrologers who do that. Rick Levine, he's one that is always, diving into the details, and bless his soul. I appreciate what it is that he has to offer. He's an Aries, His impulse is driving him that way, and I thank him for that. I give you a version of this astrological dance that, I see that is carrying some weight in this moment to pay attention to, and as we go each week for the next 3 weeks, 4 weeks of the Scorpio dance, I'm going to be tuned in at as deep and penetrating level as I can to offering you the invitation of what this celestial dance is saying. Sometimes subtly, sometimes profoundly, sometimes you will feel the tone of life like that beat of a deep bass drum, beckoning your participation in something that you have not participated with yet. There have been inklings of it. Oh, yes, there have. Do you remember? You're being called to remember. It's there within you, always has been. Pay attention. Anyway, the lively astrologer, Yo, has basically enjoyed sharing with you my perspective, which is the only one that I have, on what it is that we are being invited to. So if you get inspired by this, you know, drop a note, say thanks. I'm most of the time available, though. There's a creative side in me that never really sits still long enough to, to grow moss underneath my feet. But the dance of life, it's an invitation to all of us to participate in it. I always appreciate a chat. I spent the weekend in two gatherings, Saturday and Sunday, with one of the astrological families, the Isar family, and it was absolutely a hoot. I just love chatting the conversation of astrology with other astrologers who have a concern for making sure that we are being appropriate and how we utilize this art, this tool, in ways to, inspire ourselves to be so awake with this experience that we, quite naturally tickle the awake button in others to say, are you paying attention? There's some really dynamic stuff going on. Let's do this together because there are reasons why there are so many of us. We have things to share with one another. Anyway, that's all I'm going to offer for this week. Ciao, and, take some chances this week. Don't be surprised if, the deep side of life puts in an appearance and says, are you paying attention? See you all next week.